All right, so I can write and solve for the percent proportion. First thing is first. All percents are based out of what number, Olivia? All percents. It's the highest percent you can get. 100. So all percents are based out of 100. When given a percent, you need to convert the percent to a decimal. So let's practice that, since we haven't done this in 3 weeks. $42%. If we were to convert that into a decimal, does anybody recall what the answer would be? Jalen.
42.
Very good. Notice what we did is we turned the 42 into a whole number and put a decimal at the end. And then we moved that decimal 2 places to the left. The reason why you move the decimal 2 places to the left is for this reason. Technically, what we are doing is we are taking the 42 and dividing it by 100. And when we do that, notice how many zeros 100 has. How many are there? 2. So we have to move the decimal 2 places to the left. And that's where your 0.42 comes from. Now, if there would have been 3 zeros here, how many decimal places would we have moved the decimal? Maddie? 3. If this would have been just a 10, meaning 1 0, how many decimal places would we have moved the decimal? Josh? 1, because 10 only has 1 0. So, however many zeros there are, that's how many times you move the decimal. If there's 5 zeros, move the darn decimal 5 times. Okay? All right, let's do 127%. What or how would we write 127 as a decimal? Any idea? Aiden, let's have you just try it. Bless you. Bless you. What would it be, Aiden? 1.27. Very good. We substitute the decimal for the percent, and we move the decimal 2 places to the left. It doesn't matter how many numbers I give you. It could be 5,000%. you're still going to move the decimal 2 places to the left. Why do we only move the decimal 2 places to the left? Because technically we are dividing by 100, and 100 has 2 zeros. Because there's 2 zeros, we move the decimal 2 places. How about 8%? Substitute the decimal for the percent, and we move that decimal 2 places to the left, which means I have to add a 0 because there was no number to go around. Ariana. Because you have to move the decimal 2 places to the left. If it would have been 0.8, we only would have moved the decimal once. And we're not dividing by 10. 10 has 1 0. We're dividing by 100. 100 has 2 zeros. So you have to move it twice. If we were dividing by 1,000, we would move the decimal 3 places. Because 1,000 has 3 zeros. So you just got to count up how many zeros there are that we're dividing by. And that's how many places you move the decimal. Now, how do we know that we're dividing this by 100? Because we said right up here, all percents are based out of 100. It's exactly what Olivia said. So every single time, that it doesn't matter how big or how small the percent is, you're going to move the decimal 2 places. Because all percents are based out of 100. Not 10, not 1,000, not 10,000. Out of 100. All right, this is going to be a real tricky one. How would we write 0.2% as a decimal? Anybody want to take a guess? Nick? Very close. Very close. Nick said 0.02. Very, very close. Nick? Very good. 0.002. Now, all of these other examples, if you notice, we did not have a decimal present. So we took the decimal and substituted it for the percentage. But in our fourth example, you were given a decimal. That decimal stays home. As soon as we get rid of that percent, we move that decimal 1, 2 places to the left. So we get 0.002. You always move the decimal 2, no matter what. Back to our I can statement, it says I can write and solve the percent proportion. What the heck is a proportion? We took a test on this 8 times in September, October, and November. What the heck is a proportion? Can anybody tell me what a proportion looks like? Aiden? A proportion is 2 equal ratios. 2 equal ratios. For example, 2 apples to 3 bananas equals 12 apples If I have 12 apples, then how many bananas would I need? If I have 2 apples to 3 bananas and we need to make this equal, if I go from 2 apples and all of a sudden I jump to 12 apples, how many bananas am I going to have? Ian? Don't know. Jalen? 4. Definitely not 4. Nick? 18. You multiplied 2 by 6 to get 12. 2 times 6 is 12. 3 times 6 is 18 bananas. That's a proportion. 2 equivalent ratios. 12/18 is equal to 2/3. 2/3 is equal to 12/18. All right, now that we got that basic information out of the way, let me ask you this. Just to check your remembering. 2/3. 2 apples to 3 bananas. Is that a ratio? Yeah. Yes, it is. Is this a rate? Yes, it is. Is this a unit rate? No. Why not? Doesn't have a 1 in the denominator. Good. What about 12/18? Is that a ratio? Yes, it is. Is that a rate? Yes. Yes, it is. Is that a unit rate? No. Doesn't have a 1. Good. All right, here we go with example 1. And this is what your questions will look like. What number is 50% of 30? Now, many of you right off the bat might know this answer. Aiden? 15. 15 is the correct answer. Okay. 5 times 3 is 15. However, the I can statement wants us to set up a proportion. So I have to set up 2 ratios that are equal to one another. The second ratio, right here, the second fraction, the second division problem, will always be the percent. So we need to do the same thing here. Percent over 100. So what goes in our first fraction? What goes in our first ratio? Part to whole. Because remember, this is exactly what a fraction is. A fraction is part of a whole. Now we need to dissect this problem. Where do you think we're going to put the 50%? You have 1, 2, 3, Luke. Right? Right there. And I'll write it in a second. The 30. Now remember what a fraction is. Part of a whole. Where do you think we're going to put the 30, Nick? So am I going to put it in the numerator or in the denominator? I don't know what the answer is yet. In the denominator is going to go our whole. The numerator is going to be 50 over 100. And now you can cross multiply. 100 times x is 100x. 30 times 50 is 1,500. And now you can divide by the coefficient. And we get x equals 15. And you might ask, Nick.
Can't you solve it an easier way and cross out the 2 zeros and get 15?
Just cross off these 2 zeros?
Yeah.
You could have 5 times 3.
Yeah. 5 times 3 is 15.
Like cross off this 0, and this 0?
No, just cross off, just do 5, 50 times 30. And cross off the 5, 50 0 and the 30 0. And then do 5 times.
No, because then when you divide by 100, you're going to get the wrong answer. Ariana. Yeah, there's 20 different ways to solve a problem. However, Aiden gave us one way to solve this problem. This is one way to solve this problem. We could set up an equation and solve this problem. We could set up a table and solve this problem. Yeah, there's many different ways to solve this problem, but for this learning target, you need to set up a proportion. All right, let's do example 2. Josh? We don't know, right? We have no idea what the percent is. So what we're going to do, for where it says what percent, we're going to have to put x in the numerator. And 15 is our part. And you could see, just like our first example, of 30, that's our whole. Of 75, that's our whole. 50% goes above 100%. We don't know what the percent is, so we put x over 100%. What number is our part? 75 times x. 15 times 100. Divide by the coefficient. And we get 20%. What are we going to put above the 100? Dylan. Very good. In our first fraction, our part of a whole, what are we going to put in the numerator? Shane. Very good. And then what goes in our denominator? Destiny. X. Because it says, of what number? And we don't know what the number is. Excellent, excellent job. Cross multiply. 25 times x. 13 times 100. And then we can divide by the coefficient. And the answer is 52. Now I want to stop here and I want to ask you, what does our answer mean? We just found out that the answer is 52. La-dee-da. Whoop-dee-doo. What does it mean? What is, okay, x is 52. What does that mean? It means that 13 divided by 52 is 25%. That's what their answer means. That's the meaning behind it. It means that if you were to take a test, a science test, and Mrs. Bud's Eddie, very good. And then process of elimination, the 24 will go in the numerator. Again, we're going to cross multiply. 150 times x is 150x. 24 times 100 is 2,400. And then we'll divide by the coefficient. 8% profit, which is really good. It's better than losing money. So that's the meaning behind that answer. All right, last one. Last example. And where are we going to put the 10%? Gauge.
In the numerator over 100.
Very good. The numerator over 100. Those percents got to stick together. Percents got to stick together. How about the of 40.5? Harris? 40.5 times 10. Divide by the coefficient. And x equals 4.05.